Really quick, I'm going to document this process, and I hope that it works out. But basically, this is a Duke. Is it Duke? Yeah, Duke thick shampoo, or body wash or whatever. But it's one of their bottles, and I thought it had a really cool shape to it, and I might have to shave it down a little bit more. But basically, I cut the tip of it off that holds it up, and if you flip it over, it looks like a really cool water storage facility or something like that. So I'm gonna try and turn it into like a fuel tank holder or something like that and put it on a piece of terrain. But currently, all I've done is I've cut the top off, and then I covered it with a texture-based paint, and then I'll go from there once this is dry and maybe document my process and see how it comes out. Alrighty, so the texture paint has dried, and we have now sprayed it with a dark brown paint. We're going to let that dry, and then we will go to the next step. Alrighty, guys, hopefully the dryer isn't too much of a distraction. I'm loud enough that it covers up what's going on. But really, all I did yesterday is I took this outside and I primed it dark brown. And then as you can see the variations of brown, I just took a lighter brown and just kind of spritzed it around all over. And then in the rough spots where I put that texture paint earlier, I rubbed some Ryza Rust technical paint, which is just a dry orange paint. You can use regular orange paint, just do a dry brush on it. And then you can see it's really glossy. All I had was my Gloss Coat varnish. But whenever I put the varnish on there, it killed a lot of the rust color, which was really odd. But use a matte varnish, but I put a varnish over this to protect the paint whenever I go to spray the water on it and put the salt on. So that's what we're gonna do next. All right, and as you can see, I've added some rock salt because I want nice big chunks of paint flaked off, because this thing has really been getting weathered and torn up. So if you do finer chunks, it'll be a lot smaller and more just kind of spotty. But really, I just sprayed some water on with my airbrush and then sprinkled on this rock salt, and it stuck really well. You just kind of got to be gentle with it, and we're going to give it plenty of time to get nice and hard and solid again and dry up. And then we'll put because you don't want all that moisture on there whenever you put down your layer of paint. But we're gonna let that dry and then take care of it here in a second. Alrighty, so it's not looking beautiful, but it's an old rusty fuel tank of some sort or something like that. So far, it doesn't look too bad. I didn't give it enough dry time in between, so a lot of the paint got cut up with the water, and you can see it's like dribbling down on the bottom there. So make sure that you give this, I'd give it a half an afternoon to dry. And I would use fine salt because it can clump up and still be small. This big salt did not work very well, and if anything, I think I lost all of it that was on the top. And I think my paint was so wet that it got up under the salt too. So this might not work out the way I wanted it to. So we shall see. Alrighty, we've been drying here for a couple little seconds, and like 30-40 seconds, but whatever. But I just popped it in the front of a heater that I have to help it speed up the process on a little turntable. And I just took a paper towel and I rubbed it down all along the rough spots there, so you can see how the paint's thinned out right there and right there. And the light is kind of washing it out a little bit, the light from the deal up there. But the brown showing through, and you can see the rust again. I just kind of rubbed it around the bottom. And just basically any of these rough spots, I just rubbed the paint away while it was still kind of wet, so that way that brown would show through and it kind of looks rusty. Alright, our next step was to take some Runefang steel or just a bright silver and just kind of really dry brush the heck out of that. And I went a little too heavy in a couple spots, but that's okay because it's not supposed to be perfect. But just dry brush a few of those rough spots to give it a metallic look, so you don't just look like you have this odd dirty object. You can leave it without the metallic if you want, but I think it helps give it a little bit of a metal effect. And you got like these just kind of faded spots and rusty spots. And I'm even going to take some streaking grime from AK Interactive and paint some, just some streaking lines, and I'll show you that here in a second. Alright guys, and there's your rusty fuel canister. So really all I did was I took that streaking grime and did some stuff like that. I just kind of stippled it on, and there along the bottom edge where it's kind of dark and streamy, right there above my thumb, that's some right there. Let's see if I can find some of my thin lines. But just give it kind of a streaky look. If you don't have like a streaking grime technical paint or something like that, you can use Agrax Earth Shade or like a brown shade or something like that and just make some streaking lines. I also took Agrax and went over any of the silver that I did so it didn't pop out too much and it blended in just a little bit. You can still see it's a little wet right there. So, but that'll help cover it up a little bit. So there's my rusty fuel silo.